Creative Magic Club.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. We have with us Genesis Long, who is a business development coach who helps new coaches and consultants develop their first offer so they can confidently sell it online. And she's also the host of the Sustain Your Passion podcast. Hi Genesis, thank you so much for joining.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and get to talk with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I know we have lots in common and you have so much wisdom to share. But before we dive in, please tell us, what's your story? How did you get to doing this work?
Yeah, that is a bit of a twisty, turny career pathway. So I actually started my career in higher education. So I got a bachelor's of psychology and then realized, you know, that could take in a lot of directions. And I knew that I loved talking to people, helping them solve problems, but I also knew I didn't want to be a mental health counselor. So that closed off a lot of doors and opened a whole lot of other ones. So I discovered first the world of student affairs, which is essentially being an administrator of universities, but everything outside of the classroom. So I pursued a master's of education and got a area specialization in program development and figured I would be, higher ed dean or vice president or provost or something by the end of my career. I really thought I was going to be like a lifer, like 30 years in that one path. And then I got a few years in and started realizing some of the ways I didn't fit in that organization and that environment. I wanted to change things. I was an innovator. I didn't understand why we had to go by old rules. It didn't make sense for the people we served, and it just broke my heart. But I loved getting to do my hands-on work with students. So I was doing academic advising for undecided college students. So imagine the questions they were asking, right? Like if you resonate with the feeling of feeling pressured to make a career decision when you were 18, like those were the students that I was connecting with and having one-on-one appointments with. Basically a career counselor, but for the major decision of what degree type would they pursue in support of their career dreams. And so I was doing that, really enjoyed it, and realized that to advance in my career, I was going to have to actually spend less time doing the work I loved, which was one-on-one student interaction and helping students get to know themselves, get to know their options, and then get out there and pursue it, which I loved empowering students to pursue their dreams. And as I looked forward, 10 years out, realized I don't want to be an administrator. I don't want to be sitting in an office dealing with political bureaucratic bullshit. Sorry, hope it's okay to cuss on your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so that was kind of disheartening for me. I was so passionate about the work I was doing. And then to have like this whole life I planned just kind of fall apart was really sad to see. Like, oh shoot, higher ed is kind of run like a corporation, in that if you aren't super profitable for the organization, like positions can get cut. Or even when we know that something is really valuable for students and persistence and retention, we could cut those programs. And I just hated that. Like I kind of got disillusioned from this vision that, inspired me to get a whole ass master's degree and invest like 10 years of my professional life into. And then I discovered this world of online education and online coaching and realized, well, crap, if I can earn a whole master's degree and I can administer a program within a university, I bet I could run my own business. Like, what if I could take my same skills, interests, passions, education, and start my own thing? And then I started career coaching. So that was my very first offer as an entrepreneur. And I realized, oh my gosh, like this is it. Once you automate your marketing, you really do just get to spend all day talking to people. And that's what I love doing. And so I got a little taste of that and ran with it. 3 years in, people were asking me, how'd you do it? And so then I pivoted towards business coaching. And I kind of think of myself these days as like a career coach for entrepreneurs. Like, you want to become a coach, you want to consult. You're not really sure what your title would be, what your offer would be, how the heck to run a business. And I just love nurturing that new entrepreneur space from I think I could do it to holy crap, I did it and I got my first client. And so that is where my niche is now these days. And so I get to do what I loved about working in higher ed, right? So I'm talking to people one on one or in small groups. I'm helping them explore their interests, their values, their goals, and chart a pathway for them to do what they love doing in the world. Because to me, if everyone was doing work that they loved, I think the world would be a lot healthier place. But so many people are wrapped up in rules and shoulds and can'ts that keep them stuck. And I feel really lucky to be that bridge of education from you're a really sad employee that doesn't like what you're doing and you don't know what you could do as an entrepreneur. Like, come hang out with me on the internet because I can help you with that. So for me, it really was my own journey. But then also, I was able to leverage a lot of my education and experience into what I do now, which makes it so much fun. And now it's been 5 years and I do this full time. I also, my husband works like voluntarily for my business. And so it's pretty much like dream city over here. And I just get to keep living my own entrepreneurial dream while helping others build theirs. It's incredible.
Love that. I love hearing people's stories about how they fell into coaching because it never was like, a box on the list
Yeah.
of possible careers when you were in school. And yeah, first of all, I can't get this thought out of my head from what just like this idea of career counseling kids. I'm like, oh my God, imagine if a career counselor could like do an astrology reading for a
Oh
kid,
my
and
God.
just ask them
Yes.
very like tailored, pointed questions to help direct them
Yep.
to some of the things that they, have strengths for that they maybe haven't discovered yet in the schooling
Yes.
system. Because I feel it's,
Exactly.
my story is very similar for a lot of us, right? We kind of go through that like prescribed career path of like whatever it is that we figured out that was an
Yep.
available option that kind of fit with something that we were interested in, only to discover like, oh, look at all this corporate bullshit that I don't really
Yeah.
want to deal with, and like
Yes.
all of these practices that go completely against my values. And
Mhm.
for me, it really like ended up in a burnout that pushed me in this new
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
And it's such a common story, but I love the idea of that not being the story for other generations of people
Yes.
really, being encouraged to pursue their passions and being given the tools and the space to, obviously like the tools to be able to actually monetize that are so more
Yeah.
readily available now. And it's so exciting that you can literally come up with a business idea and then like have a paying client within like a couple of weeks if
Yeah.
you know how to do that,
Right.
right?
Exactly. I love that because I think of it as this term career empowerment. Like, could you imagine if we all were taught that your career is something for you to manage and your career is your set of skills and interests, and you support your skills and interests with your education and experience, and you get to chart your path. Like, how cool would that be if we knew that, like, no, you don't have to check a box. You don't have to be pursuing that pre-described pathway that maybe your parents set for you or your grandparents or, some well-meaning neighbor that pushed you towards, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? All of that pressure, when really, like, we don't know who we're going to be in 5 years. We don't know who we're going to be in 15. What if we had a different set of skills that allowed us to continue to grow and pivot so that we can sustain our passion for working and contributing and serving others, like coaches, right? We love helping people. That's why most of us got into it. But how do we sustain that energy? Like, we keep following our interests and our passions, but that is so looked down upon, right? Because oftentimes we're seen as like, oh, flaky, why do you change your job or why do you change your path, when really it's like, because I wanted to. Like, isn't that okay?
Yeah, and I think, this is obviously a newer conversation, but
Mhm.
it's real, I heard a stat somewhere that millennials will have something like 5 different career changes, and Gen Z are expected to have 10 different career changes within like 5 different industries.
Mm.
So I think, it's really important to acknowledge the conditioned thinking we have around our career because, even I have to constantly check myself around it because as an entrepreneur, like, we're evolving all the time. You can't ignore it. So, especially if you do social media marketing, like the social media landscape is constantly evolving. So it requires constant creativity, constant innovation and adaptation. But even some of the language around, the skills that actually allow you to do that, like selling,
Yeah.
this whole idea of niching, and
Yeah.
it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking like, oh, I found my thing. Like, this is how I help
Mm.
people. This is what I'm
Mhm.
good at. And it's important, I think, to normalize the conversation that you're going to evolve, you know, and I'm kind of going through that now. It's like, oh, there's a next level that's emerging through me and it's kind of uncomfortable and I don't really know what it is, but like that's a part of it. And the more you resist that, the more painful it's going to be, and the more you surrender into like the excitement and the mystery and the creativity and, you know, experimentation and play. Like these are qualities that get to be consistently something that we're enjoying and that's something that we're benefiting from. And yeah, you know, I mean, we evolve as humans, right? Like it's not breaking news, but sometimes our minds can kind of grapple with that and find it or resist it. So yeah, I love this conversation, and I think it just makes me think, obviously, what are the key skill sets that can allow us to grow and evolve and continue to serve and continue to, you know, support ourselves and make income, make an impact, and create the lives that we desire. Like a lot of those, it just comes down to human communication, like being able to communicate what you want to do to the people that
Yes.
it's for.
Want it? Yeah.
Yeah, and sales, you know, being
Yeah.
able to create offers and to create that sales exchange so you're getting paid to do what you love. So yeah, I would love to hear more about your insights on sustaining your passion.
Yes, absolutely. So this makes me think of, I recently shared a post about this, and we had a really good discussion over on my Instagram about the idea that like you're seen as flaky if you change your mind by career, like at large, right? And just thinking about society, this idea that, oh, you changed jobs multiple times, that must mean that something's wrong with you. Like, what if that wasn't true, right? What if that wasn't the case and it's actually that you realized you weren't doing your best work in that anymore because you were losing your passion, and you were proactive and you avoided burnout by stopping and getting clear on, okay, it's been a few years since I made this decision, right? And this is true in your business. You're going to build a brand, you're going to build an offer, you're going to run it for a while, you're going to love it. And then maybe you're going to get to the point where it feels stale. And you're like, you know, I'm repeating myself, which is actually something every marketer needs to get more comfortable with. So, like, good if you're repeating yourself. But if it's to the point that you're like bored of it or you're not as excited about it, it's okay to want to start back at the beginning and say, well, who am I really creating for these days? Because you're changing and evolving too. And so can your offers, so can your job titles or whatever environment you're in, if you allow it to. And so I actually developed this model called the Sustain Your Passion Business Development Model. So I want you to picture a wheel with me, right? Like a circle. And at the top, we have branding, and then it moves to developing, and then it moves to marketing, and then it moves to selling. And as soon as selling is done, it points right back into branding. So if we follow that model through, branding to me is all about your personal brand. And that's one of the pieces, like to your point, right? People need more sales skills. Like, I think people need to know that it's okay to have a personal brand, and you need to be like looking at that pretty often. And if you're ever feeling like, oh, I don't want to sell this or this offer is not right, like you probably need to restart at branding, like go back to step one, start it back over, and get clear on who are you today, not when you made your previous decisions for who you'd be, you know, at this point in your life, but check back in and see what lights you up today. What are you excited about? What have you learned? And what are you most energized about continuing to learn about today? And wipe the slate clean, let it be okay to change, and then really commit to honoring your passions and your interests today, letting your energy guide what's next for you. Because then once you're clear on like, who are you today and what's your brand, then you develop your next offer. And then you can market it for the right person. And then you can go out there and sell it and walk back through that entire process, which ultimately every sale should be something you're learning from, right? And so then that's why you point back into branding. And it just cycles over and over again to keep the entrepreneurial spirit, especially. So I have ADHD, and that means that like executive functioning is a challenge. And what I've discovered is like, if I'm not excited about something, I literally cannot make myself do it. Like, I can try so hard. Even when I'm like, I know I need to do that thing, there is just like weight on my feet. I can't get up. I can't do it. My brain just does not want to do it. And that sucks if I try to keep banging my head against the wall and doing the same old thing that I'm not inspired by anymore. When instead, releasing that I have to be who I was yesterday, like hold over my brain and allowing me to flourish and keep growing and changing, as we know everything in nature does. So obviously we would too. Then we can re-look at, well, what's exciting today? And so anyone that's listening, I would encourage you as a journal prompt, like just pause and write down whatever comes up for you when you're asked the question, what am I most excited to work on today? And try your best to release all of the, shoulds and have tos, and really just ask yourself what sounds exciting today, and then follow that, even just 1%. Like, give yourself a little bit of permission to be more expressed as who you are today, so that you're not constantly trying to fit into places that just you've outgrown, and that's okay.
Hi loves, I wanted to let you know that I made a special free gift just for you. It's called the Cash Injection Ritual, and it's my 3-step method that you can use to create extra cash sales starting today. I used to suck at making consistent money, and I believed I would never be good at sales because I refused to do anything that feels out of integrity. Then I discovered the powerful mindset shifts I'm about to share with you, and I implemented this cash injection ritual to double my income 3 years in a row, making it to 6 figures in my dream coaching business. Now I'm so effing excited to share this work with you so you can start receiving the money you so deserve. So click the link in the description or go to withsarahmac.com and you can download the cash injection ritual from the freebies menu at the top of my page. Please remember to share your celebrations with me when the extra sales and cash starts to roll in. Before we get back to the episode, I have something exciting to tell you about. There were a couple of key things that changed everything in my life as an entrepreneur that allowed me to bring in 6 figures while working half as many hours and having more fun than ever before in my business. It was money mindset work around how I was doing business, combined with getting good at sharing strategic sales content online. I know you know that this is your year to start hitting your 10K month income goal and living the life of creative freedom and fulfillment you have been dreaming about. You're ready to be consistently attracting total dream soulmate clients through the creative content you're sharing on social media, and you want to be reaching more people, charging higher rates, and working much less. So I'm very excited to invite you to join me in Freedom Club, my mastermind, where you'll receive tailored high-level support to master the skills that will create your dream life and 6-figure dream business starting now. With focused weekly trainings and coaching calls to find the clarity on your content that's going to make you the most money, to design a simple, fun launch strategy you'll enjoy following through on, plus daily support and feedback from me in the Voxer chat, you'll find that sweet spot in your business where you're the most confident in your work, having the most fun, and making the most money. Go to withsarahmac.com/freedom club to apply now. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I love this message. I was also diagnosed with ADHD and experienced the exact same thing as you. Like if I don't want to do it, it's pretty much not getting done. And well, my hacks for things that I have to do that I don't want to do is like, how can I turn this into a party? I'm like, how can I make this a co-working with my friends, or like invite people over and we'll like do the hard things together.
Yeah. Love that.
Okay, 2 things. First of all, like never compare yourself to anybody else. Not everybody has brain the same as your brain.
Yes.
Not everybody has a body the same as your body. Not everybody, everyone is so different, even for those of us who have many things in common, right?
Yeah.
So number 1, never compare. And obviously always when you're working with any type of mentor, or you're looking up to people, or you someone has inspired you around a way of doing something, always run it through the filter of like, how can this work for me at this stage where I am with my current level of energy, my current level of resources, my current desires, my current level of experience. And yeah, like give yourself permission to innovate, give yourself permission to be creative, because very often you can really like the way someone's done something or is doing something, and you're like, oh, I see there's aspects of that I really want. But in reality, when the reality of like bringing that into your reality, maybe that precise way isn't a fit for you, and that's okay, because there's another way. So I wanted to say that. And then I think the other thing that's really helpful, because I've definitely been back and forth between, like, oh, I really get inspired by creating new things, right? I love to come up with new ways of doing things I haven't done before, just like mixing it up, because then it's new, it's fresh, and it's exciting. But then that can also kind of generate a lot of extra work that when you're in it, you can be like, oh, why did I create this project for myself? You know, like, oh, this was so exciting, but maybe if I just run with that other project that I already had going or that other offer, maybe I'd have more free time to like do some other things outside of my business. So I
Yes.
think there's definitely a balance of that, and it's okay to go one way and to go the other at different times. And I think something that's been really helpful for me and that has allowed me to sustain my business and really enjoy my business every single year since, you know, I started it in 2017 is keeping it simple as much as possible in terms of like the back end tools. You know, like the ways that I do things, really sometimes our brains will go to like, oh, I want to go to the next level, like the next level of impact or the next level of income. So our brain can kind of kick into kind of perfectionistic overdrive of like, I need to be better than I am now in order to get to the next level, which often can result in us creating complexity that doesn't actually need to be there. And
Totally.
knowing that the basics that you use to get you to this level can also take you to the next level, and stay keeping things simple, but also, you know, knowing when it's time to maybe like branch out and maybe there is some slightly added layers of complexity that are asking to be brought in, and that's okay too. But just really having like a good filter for, you know, the decision making process around that.
For sure. And that all starts with like self leadership, right? Like knowing yourself and getting to know, well, why am I motivated by this? That's such a good question to like start off with, right? When you have that new idea and you're thinking about, well, what's exciting to me right now? And then before you implement it, maybe consider, can I slot this into one of my current offers? I've done this before where I'm like, ooh, I'm going to make this whole brand new thing. And then I step back for a minute and think, oh, wait, I could just make that a bonus in this offer I already have and sell that resource within this larger offer, and that could still work. Like I wouldn't have to start from scratch, but I still get to do the thing I'm excited about, but it fits in a new way than maybe how I pictured it at first. And that can be so helpful if you know like your channels of communication and how you like to connect with people. Like for me, I really love having a long-term container with folks that I meet with less often. So we meet like twice a month versus, you know, weekly calls or things like that. But we can talk about whatever we want to talk about, which I love. And so people can really bring their questions to the calls. And I do really well like responding to questions. So knowing that kind of thing about what are your strengths and what are you naturally good at so that you have some structure, but that gives you the room to play, like with the new fun ideas that pop up here and there, so that you're still able to do the fun novel pieces that are like, ooh, shiny object, you know, but you're not totally crashing and burning and throwing away everything that's been, you know, working so far, but you're maybe tweaking things. And there's this balance between like cognitive clarity and comfort in what we know, but then also like cognitive dissonance of, well, I don't want to keep doing this. That's the bummer, right? Of why a lot of us left our past jobs is we were realizing like, oh, I have to keep performing in this one way that doesn't feel right anymore. So that's what feels so icky, right? Is once we've outgrown a certain thing. But if we can find a way to keep maybe 50% of what's working, but innovate and improve some and never become those people that we were running away from in the corporate or, you know, higher ed worlds that said, well, that's the way it's always been done. You know, like that's just the cringiest thing. And instead, oh, maybe we can pivot and shift and change a little bit. Like, what would that look like? And allowing that evolution to happen in a way that actually is positive for us and not, you know, radical change if you're not ready for it. But finding that balance. And I don't know about you, but for me, I find that talking it out with a coach
Mhm.
is one of the best ways for me to really know, like, is this idea something that I can work into my marketing? Because that's something I hear a lot about too. Folks will be like, oh, I want to talk about this concept. So I'm going to make a whole program about it. And I'm like, or could you make a post about it to start? Like, like maybe talk about the concept on your podcast this week, like, and then see if it has legs. But like, you don't have to totally change everything right away. And so finding your channels in your business where you get that novelty you crave, but you also get the stability to be able to grow is super helpful. And it took me a few years to figure that out.
Yeah, I love this conversation. For me, I think back to when I had my copywriting agency and I wanted to start a coaching business. I just like called the people that I knew that could be potential clients, and I was like, "Can I coach you for free to like see if
Yeah.
this, see how I
Yes.
feel about it, see if this is really going to be a thing." And then that gave me the confidence to launch paid offers. Now I just do that with my existing clients. If I have a new idea, I'm like, I'm just going to experiment on my clients. I'll be like, here's a
Yes.
bonus. That's how I brought astrology. I just started giving
Hmm.
astrology readings as bonuses to my current clients, and then started talking about it in my marketing, bringing it out, and yeah, eventually it's really just very naturally become like a part of my business and something that I'm, making good money through.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I just want to underscore what you've said because I think that was really helpful is to always remember to come back to our strengths. Another reason why I love astrology, you can tell I'm obsessed with astrology at the moment,
Yeah.
but, to just come back to, well, what is it about what has been working in the past that made it work for me, and really getting clear on what those things are. Like, yeah, if you're like us, I'm sure other people are going to resonate. We just love talking to people. We love
Yes.
creating. We love helping people. We love solving problems. And knowing that, yeah, there's probably 50 million different expressions of that. And there's plenty
Mm.
of room for evolution. And I love what you described as it's kind of like the art of the tweak. And I feel like that's really the phase that I'm in, is realizing, yeah, like you don't need to burn it all down and start a whole new business, and really look at, what's making me money, what has been working, and how can I keep doing that, but maybe tweak it a little bit so it's even more fun for me, or it's nudging in a slightly different direction, or I'm just showing up to it, or implementing it in a slightly different way that creates more fun or creates more creativity or freedom or connection for me. And then, yeah, just tweaking little by little every day and just asking that question, like, what excites me today? Because as long as we're having fun in what we're doing today, we're going to be having fun every day in our business. And that is always going to be the thing that leads us to new, exciting things that are a good fit for us.
Yes, exactly. There's this theory in career development that's called planned happenstance. And it's this concept of, so it's a bit broader of a conversation that I'll explain it through, but essentially there's two paths of career planning. One is like, I know where I'm going and therefore I have to take certain decisions to get there, right? We're thinking about the specialist type mindsets, the doctors, the lawyers, the people that you really have a very strict pathway. An engineer, for example, like I don't want an engineer taking a creative pathway to build the bridge my car drives on. Like you have a very strict pathway, but then there's a lot of us that largely probably majored in liberal arts that ended up with a really cool skill set that now have this unknown destination. And whether that's as an entrepreneur, as a employee, whatever it is, that mindset that says I can see what happens next and that's okay. That planned happenstance is, if you were to look back, you might be able to see how the stars were aligning all along. Like, oh, I talked to that person, and then I ran into this person at the grocery store, and then I came across this webinar, and then I found this book, and oh my gosh, it all added up to this new thing. But if you had never been open to the conversation or reading the new book or listening to the podcast or whatever shaped your path, you never would have got where you are. But that openness to innovation and change and coping along the way with your change in identity isn't really talked about and nurtured enough. And so that is, yeah, I'm just so glad that we're talking about this, because I think so many people spend a lot of moments in time questioning themselves and feeling like a lot of self-doubt and second guessing, like, can I really charge that much, or can I really offer this? Like maybe somebody else could, or maybe I should be cheaper than this. And who knows what all is keeping them from putting it out there. But like you were saying, what if you started with the people that are going to be interested? Like what if you started by telling your bestie? Like what if you started by telling your current audience and your current clients about your next idea, and people that will support you, rather than going to tell, like, I don't know, your dad, who's very much the like you should have been a doctor or lawyer kind of person, thinks that you're going to have one job forever. Maybe don't start with him when you have a new idea, and like look for those supports, look for people that know you and your strengths to encourage you to keep pursuing what lights you up, because you do such better work. Like people do better work. There is scientific proof behind this that people do better work when they like what they're doing. So I would much rather have, a doctor that likes being a doctor than a doctor who only became a doctor because their parents told them they had to. And likewise, I want a coach that is coaching on topics they love learning about because they're going to keep studying and advancing their knowledge. Like, you probably read everything about astrology right now because you're excited about it. So who else would I want to talk to about how astrology could shape my business and my decision making than you right now? Like, that makes so much sense. But if you don't let yourself, look under rocks and behind trees for what might be right for you and follow those rabbit holes and just wonder a little more and stay curious, you can get locked into something that isn't right for you and you've outgrown it. And then becoming that like stagnated person that you were years ago, just because you don't know how to get out of it. When really, you just got to find a supportive community like this conversation and us and our social medias. Like, we're here to support people in their pathway to growing and changing.
Yeah, I love that. I think you just perfectly illustrated the concept of whatever it is you want to have, to be that first.
Yeah.
If I want excitement and I want innovation, I want to feel a sense of curiosity. It's like those are qualities that we can start to cultivate within ourselves in whatever small ways we have access to. Knowing that, just chipping away day after day. Of course, that's going to lead you down the rabbit hole. It's going to lead you in a completely new direction. And yeah, like both of us, both of our businesses didn't come from like having the perfect business plan and knowing all
and
of the
following
steps.
it.
Yeah, it was like, oh, like here's a step in a slightly more interesting direction, like one after another. And yeah, so much fun as possible when you follow the breadcrumbs. Thank you, Genesis, so much for coming on and having this super nourishing conversation today. Please, can you tell us, for anyone who's interested in learning more about what you do, what have you got going on, where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hang out on the internet on Instagram the most. So if you can find me at Genesis_Rose, and that's Genesis with the J. So JENESIS_Rose over on Instagram. That's the best place to get in contact. I share tons of resources and tips every day to help you grow your business without burning out so you can reach your biggest business goals, serve in the best way that you can. That helps you to sustain your passion. Along with that, you'll find links over to my podcast and my website where I talk about my current offers.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Please share this episode with anyone who you know could benefit, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.